Can Rodney Terry save his job with the win over Texas A&M this afternoon? We'll discuss on today's episode of Locked On Longhorns. Intro!
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. You are locked on to the Texas Longhorns. I'm your host, BK Brad Kellner, Texas grad, Austin native, and longtime sports radio host in the Lone Star State. Thank you for making Locked On Longhorns your first listen every single day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as well. Please like, please subscribe, leave a comment, and tell all of your Longhorn friends about Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by TurboTax. Ready for stress-free taxes and the most money back guaranteed? Head over to TurboTax.com today and get matched with your tax expert. On today's show, an in-depth preview of the Longhorns and the Aggies. Part 3, can the Horns beat Texas A&M for the second consecutive time? And CBS Sports has ranked its top 5 best fits for Quinn Ewers. I'll give you the list, and I'll tell you why I think they are way off. That's all coming up. But first, is Rodney Terry about to save his job? The Texas Longhorns men's basketball team knocked off Vanderbilt yesterday in the opening round of the SEC tournament. If you missed our live post-game reaction, be sure to check that episode out on the channel. But the Horns got a win, and they kept their NCAA tournament hopes alive by doing so. They're not in yet, but they could very well be in with a victory over Texas A&M today. And if the Longhorns win and they end up making the dance, will it be enough for Rodney Terry to get another season in Austin? We'll start with the case for RT coming back, and then we'll go to the case against RT returning, and I'll give my personal preference at the end of this segment. I'll say right off the bat, if the Longhorns lose today, and they are 6.5-point underdogs, so there is a very good chance that they do, then game over. Hayes in the barn, you turn the page, and the Rodney Terry era is done. But again, if Texas wins today and they find themselves in the field of 68 come Selection Sunday, then you wonder if the conversation changes a little bit. So here is the case for bringing Rodney Terry back for a 4th season. Number one, if Texas makes the dance, that would be 3 straight tournament appearances for the Longhorns. Doesn't sound like a lot, but the last Texas coach to make 3 straight tournaments was Rick Barnes from 2010 to 2012. And of course, that was the end of Barnes making the tournament 14 consecutive seasons, but still, it's been more than a decade since a Texas coach has made it 3 straight times. You also start to wonder if Tournament Terry is a thing, right? RT's teams tend to play better in the month of March. The Elite 8 run in 2023. Of course, Texas won the Big 12 tournament that year as well. RT has 4 NCAA tournament wins in 2 seasons. Obviously, if the Horns go dancing this year, he'll have a chance to add to that total. And if Texas beats Texas A&M tomorrow, thinking they could win a game against a 7 seed or a 6 seed in the actual tournament, I don't think is that far-fetched. So this sport is all about success in March. Rodney Terry has had some success in March. Is that enough to maybe sway Chris Del Conte's opinion in regards to the future of RT? And the third and final case for bringing Rodney back for another season, he's only been here for 2 full years. He signed a 5-year contract after that Elite 8 tournament run when he was the interim coach for Chris Beard back in 2023. He's only coached 2 seasons. This is year 2 of that deal. You wonder if that's enough time to really get a full evaluation of a head coach. So those 3 reasons right there. Again, making the tournament 3 straight times. It's been a while since somebody has done that in Austin. Tournament Terry, RT's team's playing better at the most important time of the year. And then just, do you have enough time to really know exactly what you've got from Rodney Terry? And I hit the wrong button right there. I'm going to try to do this on the fly, see if I can talk to y'all and change my background TVs to get the Locked On Longhorns logo going on at the same time. All right, now the case against Rodney Terry. This team shouldn't have needed multiple wins in the SEC tournament to make the dance. They started the year in the top 25. They were picked to finish in the top half of the SEC. Instead, they finished 4th to last. and we're the 13 seed in the conference tourney. I mean, they completely underachieved in the regular season. There's way too much talent on this team for the Longhorns to have gone 6-12 in the SEC. I know the SEC was historically good, and they might get 13 or 14 teams into the tournament, which would be a record for a conference in a single year. But still, this team, way too much talent, and you've got a lottery pick in Trey Johnson. There's no way this team should be even close to the bubble. And instead, as of this moment, they are on the outside looking in for the field of 68. They're also going in the wrong direction. Not just this year, but again, Elite 8 in 2023, round of 32 in 2024, fighting to make the tournament in 2025. That's trending the wrong way. And Chris Del Conte at the Texas Athletics Town Hall event a couple of weeks ago talked about every Texas team competing in the top 5. That's his goal. He wants every Longhorn sport to be at or around the top 5 in the country. Texas basketball is nowhere close to that. Again, they finished 14th, or I should say tied for 13th and 14th in a 16-team conference. That's not what Chris Del Conte is looking for. He went on the record in front of a room full of people and a bunch of other folks watching on Longhorn Network and said that's his expectation for Longhorn sports. Rodney Terry's Texas men's basketball team is nowhere close to that. You look around campus, football with Sark, they're in that conversation. Women's basketball with Vic Schaefer, they're in that conversation. Volleyball, softball, baseball, tennis, rowing, the list goes on and on. The vast majority of UT sports are at least close to being in the top 5. Texas men's basketball, again, we're not even sure if they're going to be in the top 68. Another reason why maybe it's time to move on from RT. You can just rip the Band-Aid off right now. Texas is losing just about everybody from this year's team. So whoever the coach will be next year, whether it's RT or somebody new, they're going to have to pretty much rebuild this roster from scratch. Trey Johnson's gone. Arthur Kaluma's gone. Jordan Pope is gone. Caden Shedrick is gone. Tremont Mark. I mean, all of those guys and a few more of your key contributors won't be here next season. So you're going to have to rebuild a roster from the ground up. Do you trust Rodney Terry to do that? I mean, that's basically what he had to do this year. And this year's roster, again, has Texas in this spot that they're in right now. That's with Trey Johnson. There's no Trey Johnson coming in. There's no McDonald's All-American. There's no 5-star future lottery pick that is guaranteed to be a part of this team next year. Texas only has one signee. He's barely a top 50 player in the country. So do you trust RT without a Trey Johnson in his back pocket to be able to utilize the portal well enough to put together a roster that can be better than this year's roster in what is going to be an incredibly loaded Southeastern Conference again in 25-26? And oh, by the way, a lot of roster construction nowadays is NIL. How much support from the big money donors is Rodney Terry getting right now? I got a hunch a lot of those guys and gals have been texting CDC for months about wanting a coaching change. We saw that at the end of the David Pierce era with Texas baseball, right? Pierce wasn't getting the funding that he really needed to succeed, and that was why Texas wasn't getting the players that had them competing amongst the best teams in college baseball. Well, CDC makes the move. He hires Schloss. All of a sudden, money starts coming in because you just stole little brother's coach, and you got a big dog with Jim Schlossnagle, and boom, Texas seems to be right back in the thick of things in year one with a new coach. You can make that type of impact if you hire a big-name college basketball coach. You're not going to get a ton of financial support for Rodney Terry if you bring him back. Like I saw something the other day that said Texas was 8th in the SEC in basketball NIL spending this year, midway through the conference. They're not going to be that high. I know Texas has a ton of money, probably have more money than any other team in this league. But that money's not going to be going towards men's basketball if this is the product that they're putting out there. So I don't trust RT without the resources and NIL money that he would probably need to get an elite roster together. There's no way he's going to be able to make that happen. So rip the Band-Aid off right now. Well, it's a pretty clean slate in terms of personnel. I think that's another reason why it's probably a good time to make a change. I told y'all earlier in the segment, I'm going to end this segment with my personal preference. I'm ready for a change. My expectations for Longhorn basketball are higher than most. I'm willing to admit that. Some people think that's just Texas fan hubris that I've got. I think it's realism. I think Texas should be a tournament team every single year. And I'm not talking about fighting for their lives to barely squeak in. I'm talking about a team that is in the mix year in and year out in this sport, just like they are in pretty much every other sport. There's no reason why Texas can't be one of the best programs in the country. Ignore the history. I know the Longhorns don't have a lot of history. They've never won a national championship. They haven't been to a Final Four since 2003. I get it. There's not a lot there in terms of that. But all of the other things that make Texas football such a great job, that make Texas baseball such a great job, Texas women's basketball such a great job, and so on and so forth, you've got that with men's basketball. The facilities are out of control. I mean, Moody Center is the most expensive arena in the country. That's a place where guys want to play. The practice facilities are great. The city of Austin is incredible. The education you get at the flagship university in the state of Texas is about as good as you could get for a high major public school. All of those things, plus the NIL, the resources that Texas has, what you'll get when you're here, what you'll get after your career here is done. Texas has just about everything it needs. And oh, by the way, there is more basketball talent in the Lone Star State right now than there's ever been. You can win national championships, plural, by just recruiting your state. Now, look, you don't have to just do that. You can go get great players from other places as well. But a lot of guys want to stay home so their families can watch them play. Texas basketball can recruit some big-time players from within the state of Texas and be really, really good. You could turn things around pretty quick in this sport. So I'm ready for a change. To me, my standard is higher than what most people's standards are. And I can tell you my standard sure as hell is higher than what this season has become. It's unacceptable. I'll be rooting for Texas today. I hope they find a way to get in. I'll never root for Texas A&M to beat anybody, especially not my alma mater. But I still feel like a change needs to be made when this season is all said and done. But we'll see. Can Rodney Terry do enough in Nashville this week and maybe in the real tournament too to get another year in Austin? Do you want him back? Comment below with your thoughts. Now to the game itself. Can the Horns find a win against a Texas A&M team that made it all the way to the SEC tournament final last year? What are the keys to a Texas victory? I'll tell you up next on Locked On Longhorns. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. Account and wonder, where did all my money go? I've had that happen way too often. Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, everything, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. They are your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over all of your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, your investments, your spending, all in one place. So you can stop just managing your money, but start building wealth too. It's so convenient. There's all of these banking apps and investing apps out there, and it can get confusing to track what you've got going on. Monarch Money makes it easy. Check your finances, track your spending, even plan long-term goals all in one place. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Make sure you use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com, and you're going to get 50% off your first year. Once again, the website, monarchmoney.com. Use that promo code LOCKEDONCollege, and you are going to get 50% off your first year with Monarch Money. And today's episode is also brought to you by our friends at Factor. If you're looking to optimize your nutrition this year, Factor makes it easier than ever before with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals that are fresh and never frozen, and they're ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. I spent way too much time cooking dinner tonight. I wish I had Factor. I got to reach out to Factor because I need better tasting food, and I need food that takes a lot less time to prepare. Factor has 40 options every single week, and you can customize your meals to fit your lifestyle. Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto, they've got you covered. Plus, wholesome smoothies, breakfast, grab-and-go snacks. They're going to keep you well-fed all day long. Factor takes all of the stress out of meal planning. The convenience is unbeatable. No prep, no mess, just great food in minutes. Go to factormeals.com/lockedoncollege50 off. Make sure you use that promo code lockedoncollege50 off. You're going to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. Again, the promo code lockedoncollege50 off at factormeals.com/lockedoncollege50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Welcome back to Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. We had to wait 6 years for Texas and Texas A&M to play basketball against each other. We had to wait 14 years for them to square off as conference foes. Now, we're about to get our third Texas A&M game in 3 months. And this time, a spot in the SEC tournament quarterfinal is on the line. Obviously, for the Horns, a spot in the NCAA tournament is at stake as well. Quick rehash of the 2 regular season games. The team split in the regular season with the home team winning each game. I don't want to talk about the first game too much because it sucked. It was the Longhorns' first SEC game in school history. It was one to forget. A&M won 80-60. It's actually tied at halftime, but the Aggies outscored Texas in the second half by 20. They ran and they hid from the Longhorns, and Texas got bullied. A&M plus 10 on the glass, plus 6 in offensive rebounds. How about plus 32 in points in the paint? It looked like the varsity against the JV when these two teams squared off at Reed Arena in early January. The second game was looking similar to the first until Texas put together a miracle comeback in what was maybe the biggest regular season win of the Rodney Terry era. Can't call it the biggest win because he's won tournament games, 4 of them, as a matter of fact. But I think it was the biggest regular season of RT's career. I think it was definitely the biggest regular season win that Texas had here in 2024. The Longhorns were down by 22 in the second half. It felt over, but Texas came all the way back to win. Trey Johnson got ridiculously hot. He ended up with 30. Tremont Mark hit that game-winning floater with just 3 seconds left. Texas won that game without Arthur Kaluma, too. That was a huge win for Texas at the time because the Horns were struggling a little bit out of the gate in conference play. They needed that one. Quadrant 1 win, ranked win, obviously a rivalry win. That was huge for so many different reasons. So today we get the rubber match. I think I mentioned this earlier. The Aggies are 6.5-point favorites, and it's hard to argue. They're the 5 seed in this tournament. Joe Lunardi has them as a 3 seed in the real tournament. Meanwhile, Texas, the 13 seed in the SEC, they're not even in the real tournament right now. So A&M being favored the way that they are shouldn't shock anybody, shouldn't surprise anybody. Hopefully it gives this Texas team a little extra motivation. For Texas to win today, some keys to the game. They got to have the same level of intensity that they had yesterday. It's as simple as that. They took the fight to Vanderbilt in round 1. They've got to do the same thing. Vanderbilt in the regular season took the fight to Texas. That's why they won yesterday. Completely different. The Longhorns brought the energy. They brought the intensity. And that's why they built up a 15-point lead at halftime and were able to kind of cruise to a victory. They have to have that level of effort, of energy, and of desperation that we saw in round 1. That's key number 1. Number 2, the supporting cast has to step up. You can't rely on Trey Johnson going for 30 again like he did in your win in late January. Yesterday, Tremont Mark had 19. Jordan Pope had 14. Arthur Kaluma had 11. Caden Shedrick had 9. If you can get those types of scoring outputs from those 4 guys, you've got a great chance to win. But if this resorts back into a one-man show, which we saw from this team too much in the regular year, then game over, season over. We'll see you in the NIT, or maybe we won't. So it's got to be, Trey can't go 0 for 14 like he did against OU. He's got to show up too. But A&M's defense is going to put a ton of attention on number 20. Those other players need to contribute for Texas to pull off the upset. Key number 3 kind of falls in line with key number 1. This is a hard hat game. You got to rebound. You got to want it. You got to get after every loose ball. You got to be the first to the floor. All of those cliches that might sound like cliches, you need them against this A&M team because Buzz Williams, his teams don't take any plays off. They're the best offensive rebounding team in the country. That killed Texas the first time these teams met. You've got to be strong on the glass. You've got to be physical. You have to be willing to match grit and toughness with this Texas A&M team. And key number 4, if you can get out and run, that would be great. A&M has an elite half-court defense. They want to slow things down. You need to try to get out and go, force some turnovers, get some easier buckets in transition before A&M can set its defense. You cannot get stagnant. This cannot turn into Trey Johnson hero ball or anybody hero ball where you're just dribbling around for 25 seconds and jacking up a bad shot at the end of the shot clock. That was the one sort of downside from the win against Vanderbilt. Only 7 assists as a team for Texas yesterday. Going to need more ball movement against a much better defensive squad with Texas A&M. Got to move the ball a little bit more. We'll see how Tremont Mark does if he's still the point guard for this team again today. I like that move yesterday from RT. He should definitely try it, but you've got to move the ball a little bit to get some better looks against, again, a very, very strong defense. So we'll see. I'm leaning A&M. I think Texas has a shot. I think they can make it interesting. Again, Texas, the more desperate team. A&M's already in the dance. Texas still fighting for its tournament life. That may have helped them yesterday. Will it be enough to help them knock off the rival Aggies today? Or could this be the last game of Rodney Terry's Longhorn career? We'll take your thoughts. Comment below with your game predictions for this one. All right, one final segment coming up on Locked On Longhorns. Talk a little Texas football, more specifically, Texas heading to the NFL draft. CBS Sports has ranked its 5 favorite NFL draft destinations for Quinn Ewers. I think they're way off. I'll tell you the real best situation for Quinn Ewers in the NFL when we come back. This is Locked On Longhorns. This is a message from our friends at Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back on your 2024 return. And then they were waiting and wondering and worrying some more. Now you don't have to do any of that. Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. Don't put this off until April 14th. You can get this done today with a TurboTax expert who's going to give your taxes their undivided attention. They'll work on your return. They'll give you real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day, everything you've got going on in your life. You don't want to worry about taxes. Make somebody else do that. The expert's going to get you every deduction possible. They'll file every form and everything with 100% accuracy. All of that so you can get the most money back guaranteed. No more waiting. No more wondering. No more worries. Now, this is taxes. Get an expert today at TurboTax.com. All right, final segment. Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. The NFL draft starts 6 weeks from today, and the Texas Longhorns are going to be very involved. Of course, the Horns had 14 players at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis a couple of weeks ago. They could have 14, 15, 16, maybe even 17 drafted in April. And one of those 14, 15, 16, 17 is Quinn Ewers. CBS Sports put out a list of the top 5 potential destinations for Quinn in the 2025 NFL Draft. We'll go 5 to 1. I'll give my quick thoughts on these, and then I will tell you at the end of this the real number 1, the true best situation for Quinn Ewers come draft weekend. Number 5, according to CBS Sports, the Vegas Raiders. Raiders just picked up Geno Smith. Quinn Ewers would be the backup. I don't love this fit because Vegas sucks. Feels like they never have good quarterback play. When's the last time they've had a great quarterback? Like Rich Gannon? Do we call Derek Carr a great quarterback? I don't know. I like the Raiders a little bit more with Pete Carroll than I did with Josh McDaniels or Antonio Pierce, but it still doesn't feel like a great situation, and I don't know if Geno Smith is the guy I would like Quinn Ewers learning from. Number 4, the New Orleans Saints, pick 130. Speaking of Derek Carr, the Saints are kind of a dumpster fire. They did just hire Kellen Moore, who helped lead Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles to a Super Bowl. Kellen Moore had some success with Dak Prescott in Dallas as well. New Orleans has some weapons, but Alvin Kamara is getting old. And again, I don't think Quinn Ewers is going to start anywhere his rookie season. I don't think he should start anywhere his rookie season. I think he needs a year or two to learn the speed of the game and just learn from a good coach and learn from a good quarterback who's ahead of him on the depth chart. So I like that he would be a backup in New Orleans, but again, I think there are better situations for him. Number 3, the Dallas Cowboys, pick 150 overall. I hate this one a little bit less. Sit behind Dak Prescott, who's better than Geno Smith and Derek Carr. If Dak can't win a couple of playoff games in the next few years, maybe Dallas eventually moves on and could hand over the reins to Quinn. Obviously, Quinn is from South Lake, the DFW Metroplex, so he'd get to stay in Texas. Hell, he'd get to go home, learn from Dak Prescott. Not the worst guy in the world to learn from in the regular season, but I don't hate it for either party. Number 2, the Miami Dolphins, pick 135. This is an interesting one because if you want to see Quinn Ewers on the field early, Miami could be a great spot because Tua Tagovailoa gets hurt seemingly every season. Mike McDaniel, good offensive mind. The Dolphins have great wide receivers. See if Tyreek Hill sticks around. They've got Jalen Waddle as well. Devon Achane is a good back. Could be a pretty good situation for Quinn Ewers and get him some early-ish playing time. Again, I don't know if that's ideal, but that would maybe happen in Miami. And then number one for CBS Sports, this makes no sense to me. The Seattle Seahawks. That'd be awful for Quinn Ewers. They just traded their two best wide receivers, or they traded one and released the other with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. They just signed Sam Darnold to a 3-year deal. I don't really want Quinn Ewers to be learning from Sam Darnold. Seattle's rainy. It's cold. That team's kind of a dumpster fire right now. I don't know where they're going. I do know I don't want Quinn Ewers going there. To me, there's an obvious miss on this top 5, and that miss is the team that I think would be the best fit for Quinn Ewers. That's the Los Angeles Rams. What a perfect scenario that would be for Quinn. Sit behind and learn from potential Hall of Famer Matthew Stafford. You get coached by Sean McVay, one of the best coaches in the league, one of the best offensive minds in the sport. Guy also runs a pretty similar offense to Steve Sarkisian as well. It's a great team. Made the second round of the playoffs. Almost beat Philly in the divisional round this year. You've got a great coach. You get to live in LA. I mean, come on. The list goes on and on. That's perfect. Learn from a great quarterback. Be under a great head coach. Live in Los Angeles. Get to play indoors. That's the ideal scenario. If I could hand place Quinn Ewers onto an NFL roster in 2025, it would be the Los Angeles Rams. By the way, one final thought on Quinn. I'm not sure I've ever seen a wider range of mock draft projections for any player than I have for Quinn Ewers. I saw a mock last week that had him going 33rd overall. That's the first pick of the second round to Cleveland. Really don't want him going there. It's a place where quarterbacks go to die. I saw a mock draft this week that had him going midway through the 5th round. I have no idea where Quinn's going to go. The Texas Pro Day coming up on March 25th. It's going to be pretty big for Quinn Ewers, methinks. We'll figure it all out. But LA Rams, that's my spot. What say y'all? That's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Longhorns. Hopefully on tomorrow's show, we're talking about another Texas basketball win. Hell, if Texas wins, we might do a live post-game reaction right here on Locked On Longhorns. So definitely keep it tuned in for that. We'll have more Texas baseball, more Texas football, and some great conversations with some great guests coming up on a Friday show. But that'll do it for this one. Thank you for making Locked On Longhorns your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On College Basketball Show with Isaac Shade and Andy Patton. March is here. Selection Sunday is just a couple of days away. You want to be the most informed college basketball fan throughout all of the madness. You can do that with Locked On College Basketball. Find it on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. As always, appreciate y'all tuning in. Please like this video if you're watching on YouTube. Subscribe if you're on YouTube, Apple, or Spotify. Leave a comment and rate as well. And share this with your Longhorn friends. It helps us grow, and we really do appreciate it here on the Locked On Network. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Until next time, horns up, mic's off. We'll see you next time on Locked On Longhorns.